What motivated you to become a literacy education specialist?
Well, I am a 10-year educator and I have worked in K through 12. And unfortunately, I have worked with students in the upper grades who were considered non-readers, which is absolutely heartbreaking. And I believe and we know that literacy is a human right. Being able to read and express yourself and gain knowledge is absolutely a human right. So I decided once I had children and experience success with um, developing those skills with my daughter, that I would create a place where others can gain resources to build that skill of being able to read and comprehend and write, and so thus emerged Endurance Literacy Center.
Wow, yes, ma'am, that is so beautiful. So, what are the essential components of literacy, and how can literacy resources help young learners improve and master literacy?
Well, there's so much that really goes into literacy. But we start on a very basic level with phonics, phonemic awareness, and then we move into fluency, being able, to read in a fluent manner. Then you can move into comprehension, being able to understand what it is that you're reading. You go from in the early ages being reading, learning to read, and then it transitions to reading in order to learn. And so we move into comprehension and then, of course, writing. So I would say those are the basics. Within phonics, there is a lot, but that is pretty much the basis of literacy, those four components.
Yes, ma'am. So, my mother is actually a teacher. She's not a literacy expert, but I have witnessed her teach students and work with them on how to read and their comprehension skills. So, I really think that's beautiful. I absolutely love what you're doing. Next question. How do you engage a student that is lacking motivation or confidence in their reading and writing ability?
Definitely, it's important to meet students where they are, meet children where they are, and give them the ability for success. So when you are, or I am, engaging students in text, I want to make sure that the text that I provide is a text that they can feel successful with. So that
Mhm.
way we can move on to things more challenging. And also, it's important to explicitly teach children the things we want them to know. We can't assume that they know anything. We have to make it clear what it is, the skills that they're learning. So if I want a child to understand that when there is, and usually when there is an E at the end of a word, that E translates to make that the vowel a long sound. I need to explicitly state that. And so those are some of the things that we do. I also make sure that I give them reading material that interests them. You have to start with making sure that they're interested in what they're reading and then giving them reflections of themselves also, giving them texts and authors that are Black men and women, so that way they can feel some sort of agency in the things that they are learning.
Yes, ma'am. Which brings us right along to our next question. How did the Brilliant Black Boys Book Club come about? And has the Brilliant Black Boys Book Club helped improve reading proficiency of Black male students who are statistically at the bottom of the reading proficiency?
That's a great question. I had parents come to me. That's usually how it starts. Parents came to me over the summer and were, especially because of the abrupt end of last school year and moving to the virtual, they were concerned about, the amount of screen time that their children were engaging in, the decline, or I would say, decline in some of the skills that they had learned. And so parents came to me with those concerns and emerged the Brilliant Black Boys Book Club, where it was a chance for young boys to get together and just engage in reading. Getting a chance to see each other, to have some a social time where it wasn't necessarily extremely academic, or there weren't anything tied to that time in terms of like grades or stress. It really was just a time to unwind and be with each other and engage in a text. And they have loved it. I have heard from parents that they really enjoyed that time. The boys constantly. I recently had a baby, so I had to pause it. But they are, reaching out to me often, like, when is it starting back up? We miss it. And it was boys from all over the country, which was a great way for them to meet each other as well.
That's beautiful. Yes, ma'am. First off, congratulations.
Thank you.
And I love the idea of having a book club. Now, are majority of the young children that you work with, are they majority males? Is that why you started a boys book club? Do you also work with young girls as well?
I do. I work with boys and girls. As you mentioned earlier, oftentimes our Black boys are forgotten about. They fall through the cracks. So I receive a lot more inquiries from parents of Black boys who want to make sure that their son is not getting left behind, or that they are set up for success in terms of being prepared for the next school year, or if they're struggling. Making sure that they are able to kind of close the gaps that we see. So I would say a lot of my tutoring is with young Black males, but as a teacher, I work with both. I work with boys and girls, and have also worked with adult learners as well.
Oh, okay. Yes, ma'am. So I know that the selection of books matter. Some people are interested in different types of books, but what types of books would you encourage a young reader to start reading?
I would encourage readers to start reading things that they're interested in, especially at a young age. You want to build that curiosity. You want to build the love for learning, mostly. And so I would encourage parents to really pay attention to the things that their children are interested in and grab material that is centered in those things. If your child is interested in architecture, space, if your child is interested in Black people, history, really delving into those things. Animals. I have a student who is obsessed with animals. And so whenever I, can get material for him, I'm making sure that it's animal based, things that he would love to learn. And also pick up in their downtime. You don't want to feel like you're forcing a child to read, because that can have an adverse effect. So making sure that you're finding materials that they're interested in, I think, would be of the utmost importance. You can hear my son in the background.
That's okay. That's okay. But all right, yes, ma'am. And so what about those? I heard you say that you also been working with some adults as well. How do you encourage them? Because I know they're a little farther along down the line, and younger children are more inclined to trying new things and wanting to learn.
Yeah.
But as an adult, how are you able to encourage them to improve their literacy skills or even their writing skills?
Well, we know that 10 to 20% of America's population is functionally illiterate, meaning they can get by, but they don't necessarily have the skills to really maximize their learning potential in terms of what they're able to access based on their reading skills. So it can be a difficult challenge to really find adults who are willing to admit that they may not necessarily know how to read and write at the level that they should. And so my work with adult learners, I worked in an adult literacy program where adults were, going to get their high school diploma. But I have also worked with adults who maybe come to me on the side, who know the work that I do and want to privately seek help. And so those are really the channels, the avenues. It really takes a courageous adult to be able to say, I need help in this area, because it can be embarrassing, to have gone through, and it really shouldn't be an embarrassment personally. It's an embarrassment to our schooling system that has allowed, so many men and women to go through and get to a point in adulthood where they can admit, I don't really know how to read or write. So that has been my experience. It's usually kind of a secret underground work, unless I'm involved in a program that is specifically catered to those things.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay, now moving on to our last question. As students and teachers gravitate towards computers, many schools no longer teach students cursive writing. So how important is it for youth to write well? And what resources are available at Endurance Literacy Center to help students improve their writing?
It is extremely important to be able to write well, in order to, completely express yourself. But it's also important that we have handwriting that looks good as well. The minister has talked about um, his handwriting, and even in writing our letter, that process, and how important handwriting is. It's extremely important. At Endurance Literacy Center, I actually have notebooks that I created with taking it back to the basics for our youngest learners, but the lined paper with the broken lines, and making sure they understand what letters go to the top line, should stop at the middle line, go below the bottom line. All those things are important in my classroom, or even when I'm teaching. I'm old school. You write that over, do it again. That's important that they understand that, especially in reading and writing. Your first time doing it is not usually the best. Writing is a process of revision, and it can always improve. And so having children and learners understand that is extremely important. Um, and I also offer writing tutoring. And I don't, I haven't had any tutoring in cursive, but I do believe it is a skill that is quickly fading among in the schooling system. But definitely manuscript and composing, how to compose a writing. And I do that for adults as well who are in school and continuing their education for their writing purposes.
Yes, ma'am. I know that I could also probably improve my handwriting. I've been told I write like a doctor.
Funny. I see what that means.
Yeah. Now, do you have social media that we can follow you on? Do you have a website that we can visit to book a session with you?
Absolutely. So on Instagram, I am Mrs. MRS. Saabi, Saabi. I'm also on Facebook, and you can visit my website at enduranceliteracycenter.com. You can book a one-on-one tutoring session. You can reach out to me for any questions about how to, get your child reading. I specialize in accelerated literacy development. So if you have a child, they know their ABCs, and you're like, what next? Definitely reach out to me. You can email me through my website, and I'd be happy to help.
Yes, ma'am. And are you also doing Zoom sessions as well?
Yes. So all my tutoring is virtual right now. So it is through Zoom. But I also, and this is a plug, but I also am a teacher at Muhammad University of Islam, DC. And we are currently open for enrollment for the 2021-22 school year. So if you're looking for education for your children as well, definitely look us up.
Yes, ma'am. Well, on behalf of NNV News, I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Now let us pause for announcements from our sponsors. When we return, NNV Weekly contributor Charles Muhammad will be on for the How to Eat to Live segment to talk about how to live a long life. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call Radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also log on to finalcall.com and click the Listen Live button, or finalcallradio.com. Final Call Radio, the official voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam.
Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel at National Network View. I am Saabi Muhammad with NNVnews.com.